Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today I want to talk about legacy, or the entire human legacy of human beings. You know, since we split from chimp 7 million years ago and went on our phenomenal journey, you know, every aspect of that is our legacy, okay? Right back to fish, you know, right back to the first molecules becoming, you know, complex organisms, you know, that is part of our legacy. But I want to bring it right up to when we start to develop into language and so on. That's our legacy of creating language, of morphing into language, of giving significance to things, of, you know, creating signifiers so we could phonetically relay what we were intuitively giving significance to. And that journey and where it has brought us, down along a lot of dark passages and passages with light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so that's our history at the moment is more or less that, isn't it? You know, we went down a lot of dark passages with no light at the end of the tunnel, and we are also heading down a tunnel where there's relative light, okay? And that is the only tunnel I am in, the one where there's relative light. I can see light at the end of it, okay? There's many tunnels, you know. I'm not going to follow a tunnel that leads me to the monarchy because I cannot find significance with it. There's no ontological signifiers that give it to me in a real way, okay? That place it down in an ontological way. Therefore, it's all driven by pseudo constructs and therefore easy to debunk, and therefore, you know, it's insignificant to me, okay? We've evolved out of the mindset of ape, and we went down the wrong passageways with no light at the end of them, and we put on big hats and sat in big chairs and deemed ourselves to be hierarchical gods when we were anything but, and so on. So yes, but it's all part and parcel of our ginormous legacy, okay? It's epic, okay? This monumental legacy that makes up humanity. Every little variable, every nerd, every cosmic nerd that sat behind closed doors, putting our signifiers together so we could create alphabets, okay? So we could create abstract concepts, so we could create mathematics, so we could enter the field of science, okay? Without the alphabet, we weren't going to enter science, okay? We needed a complex language to enter science, okay? Chimps cannot enter science because they do not have the complex understanding of science. They do not have the complex signifiers to give it significance internally. Their brains are not wired like that because they're basic and primitive in relation to what we are on this day, some of us. So yes, you know, we've been given, you know, so this is all part of our legacy, okay? You know, now, the reason I want to talk about, you know, one aspect of our legacy, because on this day, you know, greed is starting to dominate our species. It has been for a long time, okay? Greed, we were egalitarian, we're wired to be egalitarian, to be a cooperative body, okay? Because that's how we get the, you know, the optimal out of any situation. But we live in a situation where people on top exploit the masses, okay? And there's no grounding for that. There's no ontological grounding for that. It's complete corruption. It's a complete corruption. And it's a complete corruption of our legacy. It's a complete, you know, arrogance and ignorance of our legacy. And let me explain why. You know, we have individuals who are worth billions and billions of pounds, and they believe that they are entitled to that, okay? So what entitles them? Let's ask that question. Say I have a new idea, okay? Say I have a new idea, a new gadget that I invent for the phone or for the camera or whatever. I have a new gadget, a digital gadget, piece of technology. And, you know, it's going to become as ubiquitous as the phone, as the TV, okay? Meaning I'm going to make billions from it. And I put it on the market, okay? And it's snapped up, okay? And bankers snap it up, and corporations, they sponsor it and give me the money I need to get it out there into the marketplace, all right? Because they see its potential. They see its potential for profit, for dollar, for more fucking dollars, more pennies, billions and billions and billions of pennies. Okay, they see its, you know, potential for that. That's what they see when they put money behind a project that might go out into the world. They see a false profit. But anyway, so say I have this gadget and, you know, it goes out into the world and starts to sell by the bucket load, okay, and I'm making billions and billions. The idea that I think that all of that cake belongs to me is sheer arrogance, and here's why. Because I'm ignoring our legacy. I'm ignoring the nerds who sat behind doors to create alphabets. I'm ignoring the first chimp-type, half Neanderthal-type creature that phonetically uttered the first phonetic sound that had a shape to it, when maybe hungry or food or who knows, but you know what I mean. Okay, that's part of our legacy. That led to alphabets, those who created the first phonetic sounds and signifiers and symbols and wrote them on stones, scratched them on cave walls or whatever. We realized one time we woke up the fact that we could signify by writing down symbols that would signify what we were trying to say. That became the alphabet. And the alphabet became engineers, and the engineers became scientists and bridge builders and road builders and so on. And so if I want my gadget out there, I rely on that entire legacy. I rely on engineers to make my gadget, to engineer it for me. I rely on them having an alphabet and a language built in and an understanding of mathematics built in, which is part of our legacy, which was given to all of us by beautiful beings who sat behind closed doors creating alphabets and different psychotechnologies so we could come forward on the back of it all. And that is monumental, and I recognize our legacy in all of that. I am part of that phenomenal weave, okay? But to ignore that weave is to cut it up, is to pretend it's not part of me. So if I was going to put out my gadget, I'm relying on engineers, I'm relying on road builders, okay? I'm relying, more importantly, on men and women who died during wars to fight for our relative freedoms, supposedly, okay? Well, I'm only, they weren't fighting, they were fighting for fascist frameworks, okay, and they were being lied to and propagandized against. But fuck the people who did that. I'm looking at the beautiful soldiers who, from a point of view that they believed they were fighting for future generations to give them freedom and equality. That's what matters, okay? They fought for us so I could put out my gadget freely, okay? To ignore that is sheer arrogance. I can say that with an absolute smile on my face, okay? Sheer fucking arrogance. To think you can distance yourself, that you can disengage from that phenomenal legacy. So our legacy is made up of people who have baked pies so the scientists could have full bellies, so they could spend hours and hours opening books and reading books and writing books and translating books and so on, and relaying knowledge, and until we arrive at DNA, our relative understanding of DNA and the body and so on. And if I break my leg while my gadget's out there, I'm relying on nurses and doctors and so on to fix my leg, because they relied on people who have engineered language and alphabets and mathematics and abstract thought and medicine throughout the eons. So we could arrive on this day as this amazing collective, okay? And have a relative understanding of what we are. So those who stand out from that ignore our legacy, okay? And they should be called out accordingly as you are an abomination. You are a fucking abomination, an impoverished pig. Okay, you're not a rich player. Those who win by fraud win nothing at all, okay? Those who win by deceit win nothing at all. You're an abomination, okay? You're an impoverished bug to me, okay? Like, for example, Putin, who built his big 500-bedroom mansion out in Russia, okay? A little boy's dream. I just pathetic when I heard it. The chandelier doesn't represent me. The modes within represent me. The transcendental lens within represents me, okay? That's what gives me status. That's what gives me power, okay? That's what gives me the power to transcend and see this perspective for the legacy it is, okay? I would never distance myself from that phenomenal, poetic, intellectualized, magnificent, magical legacy, okay? But those who step away from it, and ignore it for their own needs, their own self-aggrandizement, are dirty players at our pond. You are the ones pissing in our pond, and you are the ones who are insignificant, okay? So it's really important that we start to talk about it in this context, okay? We need to bring down empires. We need to bring down the top dogs, and the top dogs are just that, dogs, jackals, wild dogs, okay? Now they play themselves with status and so-called pseudo-refinement, and they walk around with their 50-bedroom mansions and their 50 cars and their diamond rings and their watches and their shoes, and that's what talks for them. The chandelier talks for them. Like I said, this transcendental system within talks for me, okay? The chandelier talks for them because they believe power is something to do with wealth and accumulation of materials and so on, okay? That's a dog's understanding of it. That's a little bug's understanding of it. So you're all impoverished. So, obviously you want the status of being wealthy. Well, I'm a wealthy man, okay? And all I have is an apple and water, okay? I have my son. I mean, how wealthy do you want it? Okay? And I have a transcendental lens within, and I have a family and friends that give me beauty and honor and integrity and meaning and fabric, to give fabric to the weave that I am, okay? That's wealth, okay? I'm happy in a teepee or in a van. But we need to take back power, okay? Now, we're not going to beat the monsters by fighting them physically, because they're monsters, okay? They have tanks and jets, and they've manipulated themselves into those variables, into those plays, so they could turn them against us, okay? And bomb other countries to control their resources and so on, so they can continue to grow in a pseudo way, okay? We don't beat them by physically fighting them. We don't stand a chance, okay? We beat them by changing the narrative, okay? And one of the points about changing the narrative is addressing our legacy in the correct manner and aligning by it in the most noble and sacred manner, okay? And understanding that you're part of it is what gives you transcendental wealth, okay? That's what we need to become. The narrative has to be changed, and by changing the narrative, we demarcate. the narrative, the transcendental narrative, brings us to the optimal table. It brings us to the transcendental table. It brings us to the highest table for man and woman and child, okay? And if you step away from the table, meaning if you separate yourself from the legacy that gives us our table on this day, then you are that. You have separated. You are substandard. You are ill-mannered. You are not the refined. We are the refined. This is the refined position. Now, this is how we take them down. We take them down, like I said, just to compound it once more, by changing the narrative. We need to turn it into a transcendental narrative, not a narrative of greed and unaccountability, okay, and self-aggrandizement, because that is the narrative of the narcissist, okay? Time to move the narrative forward into the narrative that is the narrative of the empath and the transcendental lens within. Anyway, so yes, I felt like a good rant today. Needed to get that off my chest. Anyway, so yeah, that's how you punch. That's how you punch the beast. That's how you knock its heads off, okay? You know, make it insignificant. Anyway, peace and love and logic, and thank you for tuning in.